So in last session we discussed about different SSA's designing concepts like what is schema and what are the different types of schemas, and what is star, snowflake, and the difference between these two, and master tables, what is dimension tables, and what is fact tables or measure tables, and how the hierarchy flows. The hierarchy, I'm gonna repeat what the hierarchy would discuss yesterday. Let's say the first one is master and second one is transaction. The master is called as dimensions, but transaction is called as facts or measures, and the columns of the dimensions are called as attributes, and the columns of the fact table or measure group table is called as measures. And these, by using these columns, what we can do, what we can develop is a hierarchy, whereas using measures we can work on calculated measures. This is typically what we do when we work on cube project. Not only this, you have to know one more thing before going further, that is the definition of the cube. What is cube? Well, we are discussing about SSA's concepts from a couple of days, but the major thing we missed is what is cube. First of all, we need to know what is the cube. Cube, the shortest definition I have is collection of dimensions, that means collection of master tables and fact table, at least one fact table, and relationship between these two. So a cube is nothing but collection of dimensions and at least one fact table, at least one dimension and at least one fact table, and the relationship between the fact tables and the dimension tables. Let's say I have only one dimension and I have only one fact table. There should be relationship between these two. This is also called as cube. Or if I have two fact tables, let's say this is the second fact table and this is the second dimension table, I can have relationship like this. I can have relationship like this. I can have relationship like this. So it is nothing. A cube is nothing but collection of dimensions and facts and the relationship between these two. The other definition for the cube is it's an entity or an application which helps the end user to analyze their business. Okay, to analyze their business easily, quickly, and to take the better decisions to improve their market. Let's say, for example, I have a business like pharma shop I'm running. I just want to know whether my business is going good or not. If I'm earning $1,000 per day, that doesn't mean that I'm super performing or underperforming. So I can say whether I'm super performing or underperforming by comparison, by comparing with other guys, the guys who are running the same business in my area or in other area. So this analysis services cube will make the analysis part, analyzing these kind of things like what is my sales today and what is the sales for the next guy who is doing the same business. What is the sales for the total month for me and to that guy, comparison. Always you have to compare to stand in the market. If you stop comparing and if you are happy with the 10 or 50 bucks that you are earning per day, then you are not in the market. So comparison and taking better decisions or taking some strategic decisions to improve your business should be there always with you whenever you are running business. Let's say Facebook is the leading one nowadays. Keeping that one in mind, they don't stop developing the new things, right? They're adding so many new features. Why? Because they have to compete with the market. That's the problem. So always you have to compete with the market and you have to take the better decisions, or you have to implement new things which attracts the users or which attracts the customers, which will make you to stand in the top one position. Everyone's goal is to be on top in the business what they're doing. So this cube, this SSA's cube, will help you in analyzing the business quickly, faster, at any level. Okay, now this is about the cube. A cube means collection of dimensions, measures, and the relationship between these two. Let's start with creating dimensions. Then we can go to creating the other objects like measure groups and the giving relationships between these two, step by step. Let's go step by step. So we are going to start with the dimension creation here. How difficult it is to create a dimension? Let's see that. Before seeing that, I told you one point when we were discussing about data source views. I told you that all the objects that we are going to work on after creating this data source view can see only the data or only the tables or views that are present in the data source view. Okay. In this case, we have only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tables. Let me add dim product also so that it will make a full star schema. I'm adding one more table, that is dim product. Done. And it is organized in a pretty awkward way, so I'm arranging the tables. So all these tables are forming a star schema. As we discussed yesterday, star schema is nothing but the fact will have direct relationship with all the dimension tables. So this is what you are seeing. All the dimension tables are related directly to the fact table. Now let's start creating dimensions. How to create a dimension? First of all, in last session we discussed completely about dimensions, how to identify dimension. Here you can easily identify the dimensions by taking the requirements. If your requirement is the user want to see the data currency wise, then obviously your dimension will become the table with the currency as text. This is the one which is having currency. So this one will become your dimension, and the sales amount column is present in the fact internet sales, and hence this one will become your measure group or fact table. So identifying, yesterday we discussed a lot about it, and hope you practiced it. Now let's see. Here I identified my requirement is customer wise sales amount. Let me do that. For that, first I have to do? I have to create a customer dimension. So let's start with creating the dimensions. So to create a dimension, you have to right click on the dimensions tab. One second. So to create a dimension, what you have to do is you have to right click on the dimension folder and click on the new dimension option. When you click on the new dimension option, you can see the wizard open, which will help you, which will take you through all the steps that are required that you have to do for creating the dimension. Nothing here, no coding part, just everything is in wizards. Next, 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 and finish. Okay. First, let me click on next here. Here you have a couple of options. One is use an existing table, generate a timetable in the data source, generate a timetable on the server, generate a non-time table in the data source, and there are different options for the non-time table. So most of the cases, I can say most means 90% of the cases, what will happen is you are gonna use the option 1 from here. The option 1 is use an existing table. Why? Because when the data warehouse is designing, people, they will take care of all the dimensions that are required for the analysis part. So you don't need to do hard work in creating the tables or in creating the dimensions here. You just have to identify the dimension table from your database and then add a dimension for the particular table. Now I identified the dimension tables here. My dimension table is dim customer. So I'm gonna use the first option, use an existing table. Use an existing table means the table that I have selected in the data source view. So click on next, and don't worry, we are going to discuss about all the remaining 3 options too, but those are not of high priority, but I will walk you through all those different options available. So click on next. Here it is showing what is the data source view you want to use. This option will be useful if you have more than one data source view created here. But what we have done, we have only one data source view, so no issues. By default it has taken. What is the dimension table here? You have to select the table. So the dimension table in our case is dim customer. You can see the key columns and the name column is by default selected. Okay. What it will take as key column? It is nothing but the primary key column of the table. Okay. So you can see the customer key is the primary key column of the table, and the same is selected here, and the name column also. I'll discuss about this name column after a couple of minutes. Next, now this page of this wizard is asking you what are all the columns you want to use as part of the analysis. What is the requirement? Requirement is first name wise, middle name wise, last name wise, or gender wise. I want to see the sales, whether male or female has making most of the shopping, or sales is good by which gender. You can check that. So this one you will select based on your requirement. If your requirement is I want to see the sales customer wise, customer name wise, then only these three are enough. If I want to see the sales based on the customer's yearly income, this is very useful. For example, if a person's yearly income is more than 15 lakhs, then the chances of buying a car by that guy is more. So to do such kind of analysis, sometimes you will use yearly income too, but my requirement is not that here. And fine, customer name wise I want to see the sales, so click on next. It is showing this is the customer, this is the dimension name. I'm changing it to simple customer. And what are all the attributes? That means the columns I selected. I selected only 4 columns. One is key column, and the remaining things are the name columns I selected for my based on my requirements. If you click on finish, that's it. A dimension is created. This is as simple as this, creating the dimensions. There is nothing else involved in creating the dimensions. No need to know the rocket science formula or methods to create the dimensions. Now you can see this is your dimension name, and this is your key column, whatever the column you selected as key, and this is the 3 attributes you selected. Even the key column is also an attribute. So these are the four attributes. And this data source view, what it will tell is what table you used to create this dimension. That one you will come to know by seeing the table that is present in the data source view. If you want to make some changes, you can directly right click here, edit in data source view, so that it will take you to data source view, right click and edit. Understood? So this is how you can create the dimension. This is as simple as this. Creating a dimension for names. If you heard that for first time, you will think like, okay, I have to implement some complex logic here. Nothing like that. Identify what is the dimension table and identify what are all the columns alias attributes you want. Select it, click on finish. That's it. Okay, creating the dimensions. Now, when I was explaining about data source view, I told you one point couple of times. I repeated the same point again and again. The point was, if you design the data source view properly, that one will reduce half of the work for you. That's what I said. Okay, if you design a good data source view, it will reduce half of the work for you while creating the next objects. Let me show you an example here. I'm deleting the customer, the dimension that I've created. Let's say in the data source view, if I have not defined the primary key column, that means this is, even though the table is a dimension table, and if there is no primary key column, that is half design, right? That is not complete design, or the design that I'm looking for. Now let me create the dimension for the same customer table. I'll go with the same use existing tables option. Here I have to select what is my dimension table. My dimension table is customer. You can see the key column is not selected and the name column is not selected. This is unnecessary headache for us, right? So what you have to do now, you have to select the key column first, and you have to select the name column also as the same column. Click on next. Here again, what are all the attributes you want? Let's say you want all the attributes, all the columns as attributes. Select everything, click on next and finish. This is how you can create the dimensions. Now, couple of manipulations to the dimensions. How can you delete an attribute? If you, for example, you added by mistake you added all these things. You don't need this geography key. What you can do? You can simply right click that, click on delete. It will ask, if you delete this, an attribute will be modified. Okay, fine, no issues, go ahead. or more easiest way is select that, click on delete button, click on OK. Both will do the same job, either delete button or right click and delete. So let's say you don't want all this stuff from here to here. Select everything and delete it. So this is how you can delete a attribute which you added by mistake or which is not required for your analysis. If you don't want to have any attribute, if you're not going to use any attribute information, then it is no use in keeping the attribute in the dimension. So I don't want email address, let me delete it. I don't want English education, English occupation, so let me delete these two. And French, I don't want. I don't want gender. I don't want the status of the whether I'm married or not, and even these I don't want. I should not delete the key column. Why? Because the complete dimension is dependent on this key column. Okay, if you see here, don't worry much about this. We will discuss a complete session on this attribute relationship. The key column is having all the remaining columns inside it. So all the remaining columns are dependent on the key column. That is the power of key column. You have to pick the exact column as the key column. Okay. So the only thing that you have to keep in mind whenever you are defining the key column is this column should be the primary key column, or there should not be duplicates. This column should not have duplicates and it should not have null values. In other words, we call it as primary key column. So always make sure the column which you select as key column should be primary key column. Okay, that is one thing. Now now you know how you can delete the attributes if you the attributes that you don't want or that are not required for your analysis. Now let's say I want to add gender. Tomorrow the client comes to me and ask me like this, Rupesh, I want to analyze the business, the sales amount based on gender. Which gender guys are making more sales to me, male or female? If it is male, then I will I will change the advertisement so that I can attract female customers too. So like that they can take the decisions, they can analyze their business. So if I want to add gender to this attribute list, what I can do? How I can add this? I cannot right click and add it here, right? Or I cannot right click and add it here. What I can do is find out where your column that you are looking for is. This is the column you are looking for. Drag and drop here. That means the attribute is added. You can see the attribute added to this particular dimension. So this is how you can delete an attribute that you don't want and you can add an attribute that you want. Okay, this is about dimensions. How to create the dimension, the basic dimension. I can say this is not the top class dimension. There will be some top class dimensions which we will be discussing in coming sessions. Fine, here we have to give a break for these dimensions and we have to go to some other concepts and then we can come back to this dimension again. Those concepts are nothing but these three. One is build, another one is deploy, and third one is process. So what these three are means, what the job of all these three. First, let me go to build. If I click on build, you can see here the build succeeded. This is very important interview question. You may get this, you will get this for sure, and this is very important to know the difference between these three. So concentrate. The build will check for errors. Let's say if there are any syntax errors, it will check for that. Let me explain you what is syntax error. Syntax error means something, for example, the spelling of the table is employee, EMPLOYEE, and if you write EMP, it's a wrong, it's a syntax error. No, I cannot call it as that's syntax. Nope, that's not syntax. Let me explain you a simple example. I've created a dimension with 5 attributes, and these attributes are sourced from dim customer table in the data source view. What will happen if I delete the gender column from here? That means If I delete the gender column, somewhere here, where is the gender? This is the column gender. If I delete it, let me right click and edit the named query, and let me uncheck the gender option here. Here it is. So I have removed it from here. Now if you go and see the dimension, this one will turn to red. Why? Because this attribute, you can see the error when I keep the mouse on. When the key column refers to gender and unknown column in the dim customer table from the Adventure Works DW data source view. What it is saying is, you created me with taking the reference column, gender as reference column, and now that gender is not available there. So this is a syntax error. If you have any these kind of errors, any syntax errors, then if you build it, it will show you that errors. The same error is coming here. So the first and foremost one is build will check for syntax errors. That's it. Okay. Now to correct it, either I have to add the gender column there in the data source view, or I have to delete this attribute here. If I'm not using that attribute, no issues. Now you can see, if I click on build, the build is succeeded. Okay, this is how you can check for the syntax errors. If you click on build, it will list you all the syntax errors that are present in the design. On right click, build, you will find the option to find out the syntax errors. Now deploy. Before going to the deploy, I want to discuss a couple of things. The first one is, let me take the pen. This is your data warehouse which you have created connection in the Adventure Works. This is your analysis service solution. This one takes the data from here, right? You are well known about these facts. Now what will happen? What this analysis service solution will do? This solution will create an analysis service cube database in some server, right? This is one database server from where I'll get the data, and this analysis service will process it and push the or create the database, a fresh database, which we are calling it as multi-dimensional database in the server wherever we specified, right? If you specify some server, it will be taken. It will be deployed into the particular server. These two servers can be same. These two can be in the same computer or same server, or sometimes different server. So my intention here is, the analysis services will get data from one server, from one SQL server, and pushes the data in multi-dimensional format to analysis service server. Okay. To which server it has to send the data, you can specify it in these properties. On solution, right click and properties. You can see there is an option called deployment. In deployment, these two are very important. This is the server and this is the name of the database, multi-dimensional database that is gonna be created by using the option process or something. Okay. This local host means it is gonna deploy in the local computer. If I give it as 192.168.1.95, I don't know what this IP is. If analysis services is present in that server and I have access to that server, then this MSBI training database will be created in that particular server. So let's say this is your production server. You can simply specify that, give the database name as MSBI, not even MSBI training, you can give MSBI, click on OK, it will go and process the cube there. Okay. Now for our case, let's take local host. Now now let's come back to the deploy part, the next one. If I select this deploy, what it will do is, it will go and deploy the structure. Excuse me, there is an error here. Let me check that. Edit, use adventure works, test connection. This is succeeded. Impersonation information is fine. Let me check what the error is. I think I have created an instance for this. That's why the problem. I have two instances in it. Let me try by giving the instance. Now I'm clicking on deploy. So now you can see it is deploying and processing. Earlier I have given localhost, but this localhost, that means my local computer has two instances. You can see the same here. Analysis services SQL dev instance and analysis services MS SQL server. This is default instance. So I have two instances. That means two copies of analysis services in my computer. That's the problem, and I changed it. I fixed it by providing the proper instance here. Localhost slash, this is the instance I want the server to deploy the particular application. Now you can see the deployment completed successfully, but what happened? There is nothing. You cannot see anything here. What happened? What is the meaning of this deployment completed? What is meant by deployment here? So you can see the things that are done, that are happened in analysis service server. How to connect to SQL, analysis service server database using SSMS. Let me show you that first. Here by default it will be database engine, which will connect you to SQL server. If you select to analysis services, this one will take you to analysis services. Okay, analysis services server. You can give any server name. If it is the server in Australia, no issues. Provide the server name there. It will connect you there. Here you can see the list of databases that are created. Now I have deployed this solution. What deploy means? Deploy will take the skeleton of the application. Whatever the application we are working on, this SSIS application, it will take the skeleton and deploy the same in your server, whatever the server you specified. I specified the server as localhost slash SQL dev, and hence it has deployed the application, the project skeleton in this server. You can see the dim customer what I have created, and adventure works, so data DW data source I created, and adventure works. You can see the similar skeleton. Whatever you are seeing here in the solution explorer, you can see the same. So the build will check for errors, and the deploy will deploy the skeleton. I'm highlighting the word, it just deploy the skeleton, okay, or template. Now the third option, process. What process will do? Okay, before going to that, let me browse this dimension. Okay, fine, it is coming. So what process will do? If I click on process, it will open a page wizard where I can select the option run. So what this process will do is, process will get the data from relational database and it will push it into the analysis services database. Process succeeded. This is done. Now let me draw and show you what is the difference between all these three. Let's say this is your database and this is your analysis services. This is your application in the middle. This gets the data from here and this pushes the data to this, right? This is general flow. First option, build, what it will do is it won't do anything with the source and the destination. What it will do is it will check for any syntax errors that are present in this application. Okay, what a deploy will do is, deploy will take this structure and deploy here. Remember, only structure will be deployed, no data will be pushed. Let's say I selected a dimension here. That means dimension data should be pushed, right? When I select the deploy option, it will create only the skeleton in the server. When I click on process, it will take the data from here based on the design I have designed here. For example, if I have selected only 4 dimensions, it will take those 4 dimensions data from here, and based on the skeleton, it will be filled here. So it is like a container analysis services, pushing the data into the analysis services if you click on process. So this is very important to keep in mind. Why? Because you should know the difference between the deploy, process, and build. All these three are very important. In short, build will check for syntax errors, deploy will deploy the structure to the server, and process will process the data. That means pulls the data from your database and pushes to the analysis services. Once the cube is processed, once the complete solution is processed, that means you are able to see the data. Until you process the cube, you cannot see the data. Okay. So this is about the dimensions and the build, process, and deploy options. Now I processed this particular dimension. Where can I see the data? To see the data, you have an option called browser. This browser is to show see the data, whether it is coming correctly or not. So for this browser, whenever you process, you have to reconnect. Whenever you process, you have to reconnect, and either you can use this link it is showing, or you can use this icon to reconnect. That means it will fetch the data. It will go and fetch the data from your fresh data from your analysis services. So if I click on reconnect, you can see the different things that I have selected as part of my attributes. Customer key. You can see all the customer keys here. If you select first name, these are all the distinct first names that are present in the server. If you select middle name or last name, you can see all the last names. If you select the middle name, you can see all the middle names. So at the time of processing, this analysis services fetch the data for these 4 columns. That's it. That is what I defined here, and it has done the job. So you can see the data in the browser, the option browser that is present in the dimensions. Now let me create one more dimension. Click on next. This time I am using the table time. The key columns are there, so selected by default. Finish. I selected all the columns and finish. Now if I click on process, there were some build errors. I'm getting all new errors here. Let me delete this. Some problem here. Okay, we can add it back. There are some problems in the server itself. Let's see this. I know how to fix this error. Just give me a minute. I think I fixed it. And don't worry, you don't face all these problems whenever you are working on the problem here. The main problem here is the installation part. The person who has installed the software in this computer has not done good job. Okay, that's why we're getting these errors. If you follow the video, the second video of this series where we discussed about the installation, you will not face these issues. So now the process is succeeded for the dimension that I have created. Let me see whether I can browse and see the data. So browse, always good to reconnect. Calendar quarter, there are 4 different calendar quarters available. Calendar year, there are 4 different calendar years that are available. French month name, these are the names that French people use to call the months with. Let me go with month number. I'll have 12 months, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what it will do is it will get all the data. At the time of process, it will get the data from your relational database and push us into your analysis service database. So this is about the browser tab. The attributes tab is, we'll discuss about it when the performance or when we discuss about the hierarchies, mostly next session. Okay. Now, let's see what is this translations tab in the dimension. Translations. What is meant by translations in general? In software concepts, to implement the globalization concept. For any project nowadays, if you design a project, let's say Yahoo or Yahoo Messenger, almost all guys in the world, almost people from all the countries will use that, are using that. So, if the Yahoo is only in English, then most of the guys who don't know English will not use that. I can call them as French guys. They don't love to talk in English. Or even Russians, they are poor in English. So they don't prefer that. So what we have to do for them? We have to provide globalization, globalized application. That means any country guy who logs in with their country settings, then they should be able to see the application in their language. Okay, let me show you how to do that. These translations will help us in creating the same cube for different country guys, different languages. These translations are nothing but providing globalization concept to your application, which will help you in designing the cube for different languages. Let me show you one example. This is the translations tab. I selected this. I want to add a new translation. By default, it is English here. Okay. Now, for adding new translation, I have to click this. I click this. Let me go for our language, anyone, either Hindi or a funny part of it. Let's go for Tamil. One of our students is from Tamil Nadu. So let's go for that. We have Tamil India. Okay. Dim time. What we call it as in dim time, what we call dim time in Tamil? I don't know that. Let me find out. Google has added translations page recently. That is very useful one. Let's go with that and see how this works. And generally earlier, before this, Google has added this translation part, how people were managing this, they will send this list to the clients. Let's say my client is from Russia. Guys, these are the different attributes that I have in my dimension. Please give me the list for the same names in Russian language. So if you copy all these things into Excel and if you send this Excel to those guys, what they will do in the next column, they will add the Russian language for that. There will be at least one guy who knows English, right? That guy will translate and copy the same in Russian language. Now here, let's go for translations page. Here under more, you can find the translate option. So detect language, English, it will be detected by default. And I want to translate it to Tamil. Here it is. So as per Google, in Tamil, we call dim time like this. I can't read it. So I have to copy it here. Now next one, time key, right? Time key. What they call? They call time key in this way. So let me copy the time key. Like this, I have to do for all the attributes, right? If I want to provide for all the attributes, then I have to do for all the attributes. This is English month name in Tamil. This is pretty good, man. And let me see what calendar quarter will be called as. This is calendar quarter. So I have added only 4. Like that you have to add for each and everything in Tamil in the same way. Go here, get it and add it. Once you add that, done. You are done with the translations. Just deploy it once or process it better always. And let me show you how you can see these translations in picture. I process the cube. This is done. Fine. Now go to the browser. As I told you, when you open, you have to reconnect it. I processed now, so I have to reconnect it. I reconnected it. If I change my language settings, I don't know where we can change the date. Here we can change only date and time settings, and the language settings where we can set. That is secondary, not an issue. If you change your language settings to Tamil, then the default will be Tamil and everything will come in Tamil. All these things will you will get in Tamil. Okay. That means if I create an application for English language, Russian language, Pakistan language, and let's say Sri Lankan language, okay, and even Hindi, Indian language. Let's say I have created an application with 5 translations, one for Tamil, and let me add one. This is for some other, let's say Telugu. Like that, I can add n number of translations here. Okay. Once I created and deployed this one in my server, and the guy who is accessing the cube is from Russia means, and if he sets his local settings, computer settings to Russian language, then automatically Russia will be set as default and this one will be shown in Russian language. You don't believe me, right? Let me show you that. Let's say, let me change it to Tamil. I'm changing it to Tamil. You can see the words that I have written in Tamil. It is here. These 3, and where is the 4th one? I have written 4, right? Where is the 4th one? What is that 4th one? Let me see that first. That is the dimension name here. That is not the attribute name. Here it will show only attribute names. So you can see these 3 are Tamil. And if you don't specify this translation, let's say for this, in this case, I didn't specify the translation in Tamil. So it will take the default language. Here also not specified. So it will take the default language. If I write it here, let me copy the same for everything. Now, if I deploy it, you can see the data now in Tamil, whatever you selected. It is not processed, or what happened? Let me reconnect it. It is not showing. Let me find out the reason. This is fine. Let me process the queue. I think it has not processed. Successful. Let me process it once. This icon is nothing but process icon. Don't get confused. I click on this, the same window is open. This is nothing but processed icon. And now let me go to the browser. You can see it is asking for reconnect. Yes, I've done that. You can see still, oops, sorry, all the columns are showing as 1, I guess. What are all the columns? Spanish month name, English month name, week number. All these things are become 1 column. Why? Because same name I see. There is no Spanish month name and so on. Everything is having the same column name, right? So it is showing as same name, 1 name. So this is how the translations works. Translations generally helps us in achieving the globalization. Let's say I create 10 translations like this. As per my clients are staying in 10 different countries, and these are all the 10 different languages. So either you can take the help of Google, or you can ask the help of customers to translate what this particular set is called as in the particular language. Once you get that information, copy paste here for each and every translation and process it. There ends your job. For them, automatically, based on their system settings, OS settings, it will be shown in that particular language. If their OS settings are set to Arabic Oman, it will be shown whatever the things we have added, who adds here. Okay, this is how the translations of the dimension works. Fine. Here we discussed about couple of things like attributes. What dimensions will have? It will have attributes, and attributes, using attributes we can create hierarchies. This is the place or pane for creating the hierarchies. Okay, let's see a simple hierarchy, and we can discuss a lot about hierarchies. Why? Because it is not a simple concept. When it comes to the performance, hierarchies plays a major role, and this attribute relationship tab is completely dependent on hierarchies. Okay, we'll discuss about that in next session, but here let's see how to create a simple hierarchy. If you see here, let me delete this translation. I'm deleting Tamil. Okay, in browser, if you see, you have one attribute. You can see only one attribute, either month, right, either full date, alternate key, something like that. Hierarchies are a bit different. If you know the data is hierarchical in nature, hierarchical means it is stepwise. It is tree wise, I can say. Year 2002 will have 2 semesters. Each semester will have 2 quarters, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. And each quarter will have 3 months. This is how the flow. This data is called hierarchical in nature. So this is the first level, and the semester is the second level, quarters is the third level, and months is the fourth level. So hierarchical in nature means it's step by step, the parent and its children, and again these children. So this is called hierarchical data. Can you tell me one example for this hierarchical data? Year, quarter, month, and week is hierarchical, right? So let's try to create a hierarchy for the same. Creating a hierarchy is as simple as creating the dimension. We have not struggled much in creating the dimension, right? Creating the hierarchy is also the same case. Whatever the first level, drag the first level. Whatever the second level, drag it. Whatever the third level, drag it. What is the fourth one? Month wise. I want month name, English month name, it is here. So let's say these are all the 4 different levels I'm looking for. The hierarchy is created. But how this hierarchy looks, let's process and see in the browser. What is the difference between hierarchy and attributes? You can see in the browser now. So I'm processing it. It is processed. Let me close this and go to the browser. Here, let me reconnect. You can see the hierarchy is present here, right? The difference between hierarchy and attribute is attribute will give one column information, whereas hierarchy will give step by for all the levels we have specified. We specified 4 levels. The first one is years, and year there is only 1 semester data. That semester has 2 quarters data, and each quarter has 3 months data. And this year has 2 semesters data. 2 semesters has 4 months data. 4 quarters data, and 4 quarters has 12 months data. So this is hierarchical, right? This is what I said as hierarchical in nature. So these hierarchies are useful whenever there is a predefined flow or predefined view of a report. For example, my clients will see the data in this order: year, quarter, month, and year, semester, quarter, and month. So in that case, instead of making it as 4 different columns, they can create one hierarchy, right? So this is the difference between attribute and hierarchies. You can see one warning message here. If you want to remove this warning message, with that warning message, maximum you will be facing performance issue. Apart from that, the functionality will be fine. But to remove this warning message, you have to work a lot. You have to set the attribute relationships, blah, blah, blah. There is a lot of work to do for removing the warning message from here. So that's a very big concept which we will be discussing in coming sessions. This is it. I mean, what I want to discuss in today's session. It is like creating the dimensions, and what is attributes and adding attributes on the fly and removing attributes and translations and how to browse the data and how to see the attributes data and how to see the hierarchies data and creating hierarchies, simple hierarchies. And also we discussed about the differences and the uses of build, deploy and process options. So in tomorrow's session we will see lot more properties of our dimensions, and most probably we'll start working on fact tables too, or measure group tables. Both are one and the same. Thank you for the day. Thank you and have a good day.